Hello, my name's Ginny Manning. I'm hosting the panel that we're doing now, which is our general Q&A. I am a woman in her, I'm 50 now, short brown hair, grey roots. That's Home Bargains hair dye for you. So small eyes, small nose, big cheeks, chin. I'm wearing an assortment of patterns today. I'm a Scouser. You may not be able to tell from my accent because I taught English in Japan and there was a complaint that all the students sounded like the Beatles. so I had to mellow it down and here I am. Okay, enough. I feel like I'm doing a stand-up. Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. Why are you down there, Steve? Aren't you coming up here? Come on, Steve.
I'm happy if you want to.
You sure? Sorry, I'm just talking to Steve Bear now. Excellent Interplay, brilliant man. All right, so what I'd like you all to do, because this has been recorded, if you could just, you don't have to audio describe because that's available, but if you could please just say your names first, in case people, when they're watching the recording in the future, rewatch it, your names and where you're from. And then what I would like you to do is your top tip or tips about anything to do with sensory theatre. Anything at all. Just before you start, I'm going to interrogate you all about how to survive as an artist in that field. But before then, any other top tips would be great. Okay, thank you.
Do you want me to say the top tips?
So yeah, so your name and your top tips. So we'll just go along. That's the easiest thing, I think.
Okay. That one's not working. I'm Lucy Garland, one of the co-artistic directors of Frozen Light, and my top tip for sensory theatre is listen to your audience.
I'm Amber Onat Gregory, the other co-artistic director of Frozen Light. Mine is very similar. Mine was learn from your audience.
You've got to have a different one.
No, I think they're different. Listen and learn from the audience, whether that is kind of within the performance, in the lead up, within making your shows, whatever capacity that is, to listen and learn from your audience. I'm taking it.
My name's Ellie Griffiths. I'm the artistic director of Oily Cart. My top tip is don't compromise. And I mean that in the way of don't do something because you think they like it, but you think it's shit. That's not... that has a power dynamic within it, and that's charity. Finding things... Yeah, don't compromise as an artist. Find things that you are genuinely really excited by and you can see resonates, and go with those things and just leave out all the rest.
I'm Kerry Celand, and I'm here with as part of the mess crew from Tenterhooks Theatre, and my top tip comes from a performer element, that if you're a performer, make this work. Get into this work, because I think you find an openness and a playfulness which will affect everything you do.
I'm JoAnne, and my top tip is anyone could be an artist. No matter what they are, disability or not, you can be an artist.
I'm Jess. I'm a producer at Mind the Gap, and just getting over a cold and my voice is going, apparently. I'm here to support JoAnne, so I'm going to nick another one of JoAnne's top tips, which is it's really exciting to find new ways for things to be accessible for people.
I'm Rachel Welsh. I'm the chair of the board of Interplay. My top tip is to collaborate and to work together as peers in the sector and with the communities that you're in fear of sounding like a slogan on the side of a political campaign bus. You are stronger together than you are apart, particularly at this time where there is some lobbying for change that needs to be done within the industry. I think working together is the best way to achieve that. So collaborate would be mine.
I'm Jeremy Harrison, and I'm from Bruford College, where I run the Theatre for Young Audiences Centre, and I'm also the lead artist for Playground, which is a project based in, well, not a project, I'm not supposed to call it a project. It's now a national portfolio organisation from the Arts Council. Yeah. It's difficult, isn't it? Because everyone has said so many things. I think my tip would be, don't listen to people who tell you that this work isn't valid or isn't as good as other stuff. You know, that one, I think it's quite hard sometimes to hold on to your own direction when the sector, you know, the theatre sector seems to find you invisible. We were talking about agents a little while ago and prejudices towards children's theatre and work like this. So, yeah, and maybe it's connected to this, which is find your community, because then the people who do like work can support each other.
Hello, I'm Kirsty, Artistic Director of Interplay Theatre, and I think my top tip is get it wrong, because I have wanted to make this work long before I started making this kind of work, and I knew that I could make children's theatre, and I knew that I could think about access, and I never brought those things together because I watched a lot of the work and went, oh, I could never do that. And then when I started to do it and get it wrong was when I got better at it. So start and be prepared for it not to be perfect at the beginning.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody. Oh yeah, let's clap. Is anybody writing this down, by the way? Yeah, good stuff. I forgot to say I'm on the board of Interplay. I was too busy trying to be funny. Thank you very much. No, but I also am a board member of the International Inclusive Arts Network, which is a mostly online community, and we're completely obsessed with inclusivity, accessibility. At the moment, we've been focusing on disability, but actually what we're interested in the whole shebang, really. We do have a toolkit that's on our website, but we would love anybody to add to it. There's, all about trying to make inclusive work, trying to make accessible work. We're also looking for more board members. If anybody's interested, please have a word. Now, I know that we've got some questions for this amazing panel from the Zoom. Is that right?
Yes.
Oh, you're there. Okay, great.
Yes, let's go on here. Yeah, we've got a few questions from the people on Zoom. So the first question is from Natasha and asks, as a facilitator, I am really interested and try my best to use a lot of stimuli with different sensory engagement to create art with young people. Do you have any advice / guidance / examples I could develop?
I think it's working now. Find sensory things that make you happy. Go in your kitchen cupboards and smell things and put your hands in things, and go to a pound shop and have a look around at all the magical things. Are no longer a pound, actually, which really stresses me out. Yeah.
I used to love pound, but it's not pound anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just very annoying. To start, from things that interest you, because there's sensory properties. I just did that with my tights, and I'm like, that's a pretty fun, property. Yeah, sorry, that's maybe not that helpful, but I think if you're interested in it, then other people will be interested in it.
And explore with different ideas, and then if one idea doesn't work, don't chuck it, just put it to the side, and then it might work the next time. Because I had a few ideas like with toy cars and paint, but then the kids were just playing with the cars as normal, not trying to put in the paint. So then we were like, ditch. We put that to the side, and we tried to put paint in balloons, and then try and do that, and it didn't work. So just try things out and explore. Yeah.
One thing I think I would say is I quite like with stimuli, not if I'm struggling to find the sensory stimuli, actually starting with the idea first and then going, how could I replicate that? So I think I used to Google like sensory this or like sensory that. And the more I realised that I was doing that, I was becoming less and less creative when I did that. So actually trying to think outside the box about what things, like anything can be sensory really if you use it in the right way. So maybe starting with what the idea is and building from there. I don't know if that makes sense.
I like mixing things together. So, like, you know, instead of just like sand, what can you put in sand? What, you know, what's it like when there's shaving foam in it? What's it like if there's ribbons in it? What's it like if there's soil in it? So it's just like, you know, what stuff can you put with other stuff, and what does that stuff feel like?
Another question is from David and asks, it's when we were in one of the previous panels talking about intense interaction, and he asked, does anyone know if there are any academic books that discuss intense interaction? I'd love to know also the origins of the term / practice.
Can I just check that? Can the audience hear the questions? Okay.
It might be worth repeating them into a microphone if that's okay.
Yeah. Can you come closer?
I don't know how long. Sorry. I'll sit in the middle if that's okay. I like the floor, actually. I think it'd be quite nice.
Thank you.
Story time, everybody.
If you could repeat that.
I don't know how long I can stay here until the battery runs out, but let's see. So David asked, does anyone know if there are any academic books that discuss intense interaction? And he'd also love to know the origins of the term and practice.
Jeremy can answer that.
I think I made a mistake.
So, it's intensive interaction, and there are lots of academic-y papers about it, but I think the most interesting, one of the most interesting resources is by Phoebe Caldwell, and she has an incredible web resource, actually, that's free, including lots and lots of videos and discussions about various aspects of intensive interaction. But if you just Google intensive interaction, you'll come across quite a lot of things. And is it David Howell or Peter Howell? David Howell. Howlett. David Howlett is the other big name in the sector. But Jill.
So intensive interaction is capital I, capital I. So it's not lowercase. It's a thing and deeply researched, and there's a system. So yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Is it Dave? You said David?
David Turner.
And that is me.
Okay, David Turner.
Just to repeat what Jill said, it's capital I for intensive and capital I for interaction. So when you're whacking it into Google, use those capitals.
Yeah, why aren't you up here, Jill Brigg? Come on, Jill Brigg. No, I'm only messing, but we do have Jill Brigg with us. Brilliant. Okay. Anybody else?
I would also just worth Googling Us in a Bus, who are an organisation that that do training with intensive interaction, and I think they do both in-person training and online training, which I've been to in the past and really enjoyed.
What was the name of that, sorry?
Us in a Bus.
If it's particularly academic, there's a researcher called Dr. Melanie Nind, and her last name's Nind, and she was one of the founders and has written lots of research and academic texts about it. And she's based down in Southampton, and yeah, she's like glorious. So anything that she's written will be good.
Is that everyone? Thank you very much. And the next question, please. Can you just introduce yourself very quickly?
I can, yes. My name is Madassa, and to describe myself, I am a brown Pakistani boy from England. I am wearing a tan-coloured jumper, black trousers, and big brown boots, as is the theme, the stompy around boots. And I work with Interplay and the Playhouse in a lots of ways. Thank you. So the question I have is from April, and she said, I love that JoAnne Haines Dancing with Colours offers a breakout room with a live stream of the performance when people might feel overwhelmed. How feasible would this be to offer generally for every performance, just thinking in terms of carers or splitting people into separate rooms, etc.?
So in my experience in the kind of last 3 venues that I've worked in, that has been on offer every time. It requires 1 extra staff member to just be a guide, and what it does require is the front of house team to be accommodating and allowing people to leave and giving them that offer. But with regards to the actual practicalities of rolling it out, there really is no excuse to not offer that, in my opinion. Most places are rigged with a camera through the sound desk anyway, even if it's for archival recording. And after the pandemic, a lot of money was given out for this. So if you're approaching a venue, they probably got investment to invest in this exact kind of technology. They probably invested in it to create shows for kind of paid ticketed online streaming, but with that kind of model shifting since venues have reopened, it's a really good use of repurposing that kit. So I think if you're somebody who's visiting a touring venue, and you should request that to be an offer, because they will have the technology, because that was a big amount of the grant that was given out during COVID was to go towards that. So that would kind of be my advice to anybody trying to get into venues and wanting to provide that offer for their audiences. They will have a camera.
This is from David Turner again. From David Turner again. Is the rise of immersive theatre, for example, Punch Drunk, a broadly promising development, or is it problematic? Does immersive theatre broaden participation?
I think it's all of those things. I think it's really beneficial. Like, I love Punch Drunk's work, experiencing it. It is experiential, it is immersive. Is it sensory? Probably. Do you classify it as sensory theatre? I don't know. Depends how you define it. I think you'd be struggling to find, being careful with what I say. You would struggle to find something on that scale commercially that doesn't have its access challenges. I think everything does, and everyone has work to do to make their work a bit more accessible. So yeah, it may be problematic, but also extremely exciting, and has changed the game in the way a lot of people think visually and immersively. So yeah, I think both.
Yeah, I think it's diversified theatre-going audiences. Different people like going to immersive shows that don't like sitting in the dark, being quiet. But I think sensory theatre, I think the way we're all talking about it today, has a level of safety built in, that we look after our audiences, create safe spaces so we can take risks. Whereas often in sensory theatre, you are deliberately made to feel fear as an audience member. Sorry, what did I say? Oh no, not in sensory theatre, that would be bad. Okay, yeah, in immersive theatre, we don't do that. In immersive theatre, often fear is played with. I've been to a show where at 11 p.m. we were marched up 10 flights of stairs by gunpoint and held at the top of a building by gunpoint. But I knew it was theatre, so I was safe. I couldn't do that to the audiences that we work with. That would absolutely not be safe. So I think it's brilliant. I think it's inventive. I think we can take fun things from, like, we learned a lot about smells from Punch Drunk, So I think it's great. I think it changes conversation, but there's an element of safety in there. Yeah.
Thank you. Any more?
Sorry, yes, I have 3 more. So I have one question from Joe, 2 from Joe actually, but we'll do the first one. What are your thoughts on including guidance for staff/venue as a form of rider? As someone in the creative community, I can appreciate the difference between a venue and a company putting on the show and them having training, but this isn't always the case by the general public.
Sorry, I was looking for a mic. I don't think we call it a rider, but we do quite extensive training with venues that we tour to about welcoming audiences. We used to go in person to all the venues we were going to tour to kind of talk to them about the work, and what we found that because venues had such high turnover staff members, and in particularly areas such as front of house, box office and marketing, that actually it had to kind of be ongoing training for lots of new fluctuations of staff. So we now have an online training platform. So for any venue that we go to, staff members of that venue are sent out a kind of a series of videos depending on what their role is within the venue. So, for example, there's a series of videos for a technician, there's a series of videos for a programmer, there's a series of videos for box office, there's a series of videos for front of house, and it goes on. And it's kind of a series of probably in total 30 minutes of videos about the work that's coming, about the audience that's coming, about how to make the audience feel welcome. And our main reason for doing that was because we did do an evaluation report in 2019 by Annie Ferguson, and the main finding was that although the theatre shows that we were creating felt safe for the audience, sometimes their experiences of the theatre did not. So we took that as our responsibility to do extensive work with the staff of every theatre that we go to ensure that the audience is having a fun and safe time for their whole experience, not just when they are in a theatre show.
Thank you. This is another one from Jo. How do we cater for audience members with additional sensory needs that don't want the relaxed performance? They want the flashing lights and music, but they also want to be able to move around the space, stimulated, be themselves.
Sensory theatre.
Sensory theatre. I was also going to say we also need more than one relaxed performance as well, don't we? Again, that's the way. It's a hard question to answer because there's so many structures in so many organisations and companies that are different. In JoAnne's show that she was talking about earlier, Dancing with Colours, you could do that. You could take the music out when someone didn't want it. You could add it in when they did want it. So I think it's options.
Give them options to choose, and if they choose to stay in, then it's, if they ask for ear defenders, they can ask them to give them options what to do. Because sometimes I go and see a show, and if I ask Jess, has it got loud noises in there, and they say yes, I ask them for ear defenders. Like today, I didn't expect that, so they put my finger to my ears, which helped. It being prepared and be honest with yourself and the company that you're going to see.
I think there's something about. I think what happens a lot with some work, in traditional theatre mostly, is that a performance is made, and then it's put out there, and then it's like, oh, can you make it relaxed? And I think what should be happening is from the offset, when the budget is written, that there is money there, that's part of the making process, and we start from there instead of it being an add-on. And also, for me, it's about making work where there's space and where there's flexibility for the individuals.
And I think that variety of style of relaxed performance means that we need to celebrate this scene even more. So it is about going, there is like large scale producing theatres where you can have a relaxed performance of their Christmas musical. Absolutely, that should exist. But there also should be small scale work that is touring that can be tailored to individual audiences. There should also be mid scale work that can exist in lots of ways. The more work that we support to happen, the more options that people with learning disabilities or additional sensory needs can pick and choose what they see and why. Woo! Yes.
I just have one last question, then I will. Thanks, Vanessa. Lovely. So just one last question. How would you best present / perform a piece of theatre with narrative to the elderly with Alzheimer's and hearing issues?
There is a lot of sensory theatre that can cross over with dementia work as well. I've seen that happen quite a few times, that people take similar shows or change things slightly to make that happen. Does anyone here have experience of that? No. We might not be the right people to answer that question. Please recommend someone.
There's a fantastic local academic called Nikki Taylor, who works specifically doing a lot of research and developing plays and commissioning plays that both centre lived experience of people with dementia and Alzheimer's, but also is kind of accessible for them from that first entry into the building through to the end of the show. So I would say, look up Nikki Taylor's work.
And Nikki Taylor was one of the pioneers of relaxed performances and also invented dementia-friendly performances here at the Playhouse. So she's a very excellent person to look up her research. Thanks, Reel.
I think for ages, I did a research fellowship kind of looking at it, and for ages I've wanted the opportunity. I don't know if I would necessarily separate it out in that way, but because what I found really interesting is across the work that is being made with and alongside and for people with dementia, there's such a focus on who they were before they were neurodivergent. And I think coming from a sensory theatre approach, there's such a lot to offer with offering an experience that celebrates who they are now and their way of being in the world, that I always find it slightly funny that sometimes with work for older people, there's an assumption that like their wedding day was the thing that defines them most. And it depends if you liked your husband, right? or your wife or whoever. Like, I sort of am really, really interested in, I think when someone changes, when their way of being in the world changes, there's such a clear like shift in their relationships. And I'm curious about these sensory theatre spaces as places where people can connect and be with each other in new ways, where maybe it doesn't feel that feeling of loss isn't at the forefront. I mean, all of this is just grandiose designs, but yeah, I think it would be really, really rich and great to just like play and get it all wrong and explore that more, right?
There is a theatre company, I can't remember them. Lucy, I'm looking at you. They made a show and it was about a garden. It went to Jackson's Lane.
It's Spare Tyre.
Spare Tyre.
Magdalena Schamberger in Scotland as well.
Magdalena Schamberger in Scotland, Spare Tyre, both great people to look up who've done this work.
That's done. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you to everybody. Thank you. Thank you to everybody who sent their questions in, especially the guy who's already here in person. double whammy there. Yeah, I've just got a question for everyone, just a quickie as well. I just wondered who do you each admire in your field?
I feel really uncomfortable labelling a field by a group of people it's made for, because that doesn't mean that each of the people, the audience is being assumed they like the same things. So I don't really identify my field as being other people that make work for disabled people. I find that strange. So no, I wasn't being an asshole. Well, I kind of was, I suppose, but that's fine. Yeah, I just mean in terms of in terms of a field, I really love like sensory and immersive performance and multidisciplinary works, and also theatre for young audiences, I suppose, is like so I probably should have thought through a couple of examples. Oh no, actually, like I always come back to it in a way, but like a lot I really one of my favourite shows I ever saw was called Hug. And you were blindfolded and singers came towards you and hugged you, and the vibration of their voices through their bodies, like by Verity Standen, who's an artist in Bristol. I think that was one of the best theatre experiences I've ever had in my life. And to me, that was so embodied and sensory. Anyone could have enjoyed it in all their different ways. and it was, I just thought that was like, I think her work is magnificent. So I always really like see what she's doing. I'm like, wow, that's great.
Great. I'm just gonna rephrase that question. If you were saying to somebody, to a freelancer, check this person out, who would you say, check this person out? That's a better way to put it.
I'm going to mention someone who's already come up in this Q&A, but I think for me that would be like someone like Punch Drunk, someone like really big, immersive, kind of. Well, you know, we're talking a lot in Frozen Light, especially in early R&D, about world building. I feel like Punch Drunk, from a design and sensories perspective, really build really exciting and fantastical worlds to kind of be part of. So seeing a show like that to me is really like, oh, what is the world that they've built? What are the worlds I want to build? I find that looking at, you know, immersive companies that kind of build worlds is something that I always find really exciting.
For me, if somebody asked me that, I would say delve into the world of therapeutic clowning, because for me that's where there's this potentially this really beautiful space for connection, and the beauty is in the connection.
I'm going to answer the first question, which was what inspired me is the audience with learning disabilities, and they like ask me to do something or tell me to do something, I would do it, and no matter what, I'll try my best not to get distracted from them laughing at the when they go thing. Like, for example, one of the R&D days, I slipped on the paint, and like, it was not meant to happen, but they thought it was part of the performance, but it wasn't part of the performance. I actually fell on my bum. But I made it look like a part of my performance. Yeah.
It's important to remember that about checking in with the audience, because the moment that you said that about who you admire in the sector, I thought of children that I'd worked with, that I went, them, because they know more than me about this kind of work. And I think it does always come back to audience for me, even though I can't tell you to look them up, but yeah, that's something that's important to me as well.
I think in terms of old school, Dorothy Heathcote didn't make sensory theatre but did extraordinary things in the moment as a teacher in role. Her works influenced a lot of this sector, I think, without people even realising. There's a fantastic omnibus documentary on YouTube called Three Looms Waiting, and I show it to my students, and it was made in the 1970s, and it completely blows them away. It feels so radical even now. In terms of current practice, it's not in the sensory field. Al Vasio, Mexican dance company, who completely changed the way I think about audience and interconnection, and Barbara colleague from Helios Theatre Company, who does make sensory work for babies. And, you know, like we've talked about before, Ellie talked about artistic ambition. Spend some time with Barbara and hear the way she talks about the work, the integrity, the way she's so articulate. It's just fantastically inspiring and a reminder that we have to reach for artistic excellence.
It's going to sound like a cop-out, but I'm going to go with Mind the Gap. Only because it was one of my first kind of moments where the whole experience had been considered for me, and I visited the studios in, when was the collab with Gecko? When was that R&D in? 2018, and the venue that I was at the time was going to be one of the touring partners on that. It was one of the touring partners on that. And we were invited up to see the very initial sharing and scratch of that performance, and it was a scratch in a safe environment whereby you always R&D your work, and yet we were still almost treated as audiences with no assumption that we were all kind of neurotypical. It was remarkable how from the minute we entered that space, we entered a new environment. And one other thing I'll say is the investment in that space is remarkable. It is giving a huge platform. That rehearsal room blew my mind. I think about it all the time, because what it allows you to do is it allows you to be bold and take risks, but in a comfortable and an assured environment. And it was just a really remarkable day. So yeah. That would be my one.
I was just going to say, I do think the sensory theatre sector is really friendly and really generous and wants more people to make sensory theatre. So I think contact people, have conversations, ask for a cup of tea, because we're personally always really excited when people do that and say, I want to make this work, how do I do it? Yeah.
Can I jump in and just use this as a chance to say something? So I'm obviously here representing Interplay, but I'm also kind of London-based now, which you can all boo at if you want. And this idea, so I've been on the board of Interplay for 2.5 years, and this idea of a symposium has been discussed for a while under both Steve and now Kirsty, through various different leaderships on the board as well. And this only happened because a lot of people came together to do it. And it came together because of the connections that all of these people made. So I just want to use this chance to really thank Interplay and the Playhouse together, because that collaboration has actually brought ideas that have been developing for quite some time now to life and actually brought this community of people together. So I'm just going to jump in there now and say that if we can maybe give both of those teams a massive round of applause. Because it's so beautiful to see something that was it was an away day minute at the end of it, like 2 years ago at the museum. It was just a note saying, what if we did a symposium? And now you're all sat in this room sharing really inspiring things. So thank you for bringing it to life for us. It's been an incredible day.
Thank you. Can I add to that as well, that we wouldn't be able to do any of what we've done today without several MPOs and freelancers also being here to support the work, and they've invested like financially with their time and their expertise that we are really, really grateful for. So thank you all for being here.
Okay, how are we doing for time, Sarah? Yeah, so has anybody got any questions from the audience?
Oh, God.
Sorry, that was very oh, isn't it? It's not so much a question, more of a comment. I'm Roz. Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say thank you for everyone for sharing all your knowledge and experience today. If you can't tell by the accent, I'm based up in Scotland in Edinburgh. And recently, I was saying to Kirsty earlier, I've been feeling quite uninspired lately about what's going on. And it just kind of feels like something's got to change. And I don't see a lot of companies really embedding access, inclusivity, sensory theatre into their practice. So I just want to say thank you for lighting the fire in my belly again. So thank you, everyone.
Is that you, Tash?
It is me. Okay. And I think Ant also wanted to ask one, but I'll ask mine first.
Yeah.
I'll respond to first. Yeah, I'm just going to ramble into this question. Because we were having a chat.
Do you need to come up here and talk into the microphone so everyone can hear? Thank you, Tash.
Have my seat, have my seat. Oh. No. Yes. Ooh. Yes, JoAnne. I was having a lovely chat with Ollie, and we were talking about how can we get more of this in mainstream theatre? How can more people know that this sensory theatre is happening? And one of the things that Ollie was saying, sorry to put you on the spot, Ollie, was about the training. You know, this ought to be bog standard part of any actor's training, to learn this as part of their training. And I think, yeah, has anyone got any suggestions? Or, I mean, I'm kind of looking at you, Jeremy, because you do. You know, have you got anything you'd like to say on that?
Well, I kind of said it in the panel, so I don't want to repeat for those who were there, but I think, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there is a predominance within actor training around the psychological realist tradition, which is fourth wall stuff, you know, relationships between characters, inner life of characters, as opposed to relationships to audience. So I think the training model has to expand to include audience, but it's going to be a hard sell. Because, you know, when I first started, I put a children's theatre module into the acting and actor musician BA courses at Bruford. And it wasn't easy to hold on to. And the minute I stopped running those courses, the module disappeared. And I think there's a sense that we're all familiar with, isn't it, that the work is somehow not as good as the mainstream theatre. And I think students don't necessarily think that, but that's the value system that they're exposed to when they're within the drama school. So there's a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy there. But yeah, it's not just about placing the training in there, it's about rethinking our relationship to audience, which is so embedded in actor training practices. But
I don't have anything to kind of offer in terms of how to do more training, but just to say from the theatre company side of it, where we are constantly recruiting performers, students from Rose Bruford who have received that training, and also students from East 15 who also have a really strong community theatre module, do come to our auditions with an unfair advantage that they have knowledge of the work and of the audience. And we have hired a lot of performers from those institutions because of the knowledge that they've come with, and how that makes them kind of more ready to jump into the work, and kind of like an understanding of what they're getting into. But I also just want to say, kind of going back to the venue side of things, is it's fantastic for more artists to be trained, but I do also think that venues need to be open to welcoming them into their buildings as well, because there's no point of having lots and lots of sensory artists if we can't get into the sector. So it comes from both sides. I think we have a responsibility as a sector to ensure that there is both the training there for artists, but also that community and venue doors are open to welcome them.
And I feel a responsibility to just qualify one of the things I said a moment ago, which is, although the module disappeared, I still run sensory theatre projects, and the actor musician BA course does engage with that. So 30 students each year are going through that project, and many of them, it's interesting because many students from other courses reach out to me and want to join that project. And I have to say that doesn't happen in other projects. So it is strangely, it's kind of got its own persuasive power, I think, once the students begin to see that work.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to say too that these kind of considerations could be embedded in any theatre maker's practice from the very beginning, and in that I include writers. The role of the playwright in this is a whole nother discussion, I think. But why not? Why aren't we doing that? Why isn't there's lots of freelancers out there who don't have a formal education in this, but they build up a vast amount of experience, and everybody should be considering it, I think. Thank you. Any more questions?
I've got a reply to that. It's often the money might be an issue, because we were talking yesterday at Man the Gap about the students. They come to Man the Gap for 3 years, and once the 3 years is up, where are they going to go? And there's artists we put money towards. Let me think. Try and get my brain to work.
We were talking about the opportunities for learning disabled performers, weren't we?
Yeah, and it's often the money issues, like finding funding that takes a long time, and it's the process. If you've got a disability, you can't can't read very well, then it's application forms. Like Jess helped me to do the form. Yeah. And read it to me, and then made it easy read for me. And then, of course, it's always money. Absolutely. And if we had a lot of money, then yes, it would be amazing to do a course, a sensory, get more people to do it. But it's just finance. Yeah.
Just kind of talking about a conversation that JoAnne and I had quite recently about opportunities for learning disabled performers in sensory work as well, because it's bringing loads and loads of lived experience to the creative team. So kind of learning disabled people as performers in the work as well as audiences feels super important.
Thank you. I think the money is a big problem. Funding's a big problem, isn't it, for all of us? Any more? Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm changing my question just to keep it in this subject about training and everything.
Would you mind even just coming up here? You don't have to come on the stage if you don't want to.
Take my place,
It's like if you don't mind, thank you.
Yeah, so with theatre and education, it came in, I'm just thinking in terms of profession. I think the only way that people are going to really get trained for this is if there's a recognised profession. And with theatre and education, it came in on the wave in the 60s and 70s on child-centred education. And so that was a whole ideological shift in education on which the artist, actor, teacher, it came into being. It became a profession, and it drew lots of people in from all different backgrounds, and they were very well paid to have full-time actor teachers, designers, directors, all working together full-time, and because of that they could experiment and try all sorts of things, and they were able to offer a free service. So that was fantastic, and it went, but it needs that kind of feel to have a sort of a progression route for students as well. That's not going to happen, but soon. But I think the mainstream are getting hold of sensory theatre, multi-sensory work. So I overheard an opera that's been created with smells under each seat of the audience members at great expense, and they were getting very, very excited by it. But I didn't hear them mention anything about multi-sensory theatre. So I think they've invented it, actually.
Oh, okay. Okay, we've just got a few minutes left. Are there any more hands? If there are, please approach the microphone. Yeah, please come. Can you do you mind coming down here? Thank you. And can you just introduce yourself? Thank you. And
Hi, my name's Marie-Claire Breen. I'm an opera singer. I didn't invent the smelly chair. I wish I had. But I just wanted to ask a question. Thank you, first of all. Another Scottish accent in the room. There's quite a few of us. But I work over at Opera North, and one of the things that's been discussed, because obviously you're all very much from a theatrical background, and my background is in music, and how we talk about this fourth wall, because obviously in the operatic world there's a very traditionalist way of performing, and I run a lot of work with our learning and engagement department, so I work a lot with our families, with babies, with people living with dementia and Alzheimer's across the board. So I'm just interested to see, from a sort of very, very preliminary point of view, how we start to have these conversations. And as a facilitator, as Ellie said, you said there's a tiny little patch of grass, but there's a whole landscape outside of it. And as a facilitator, I'm just not sure where to start. So if you've got any ideas of how we can start, first of all, conversations about how to bring this sort of work into the mainstream in a very, very traditional genre of theatre and music, but also as a practitioner as well.
Yeah, I think Lucy said earlier, at Frozen Light, we always welcome anyone to get in touch to start conversations. I just kind of want to repeat that, whether artist, organisation, whatever. We want multi-sensory work to be in the mainstream. That's our whole, what we are aiming for as an organisation. But I think, there's obviously been so much chat about opera recently, but, I've been to opera in the living room where, fourth wall, just like bring the singers closer, make this, a lot of what we do is about bringing performance really, really close to the audience. There is a world where singers come closer and you do the smelly chairs. There's so many ways for opera to become multi-sensory for a smaller audience. Not for a smaller audience. There's a myriad of ways that it can be done, and we're here as a room full of sensory artists, and I truly believe that people in and also not in this room are out there wanting to make sensory opera and taking it to audiences who currently can't access it. That desire and want is there.
The references I can think of, I don't know if you've heard of the work of Catherine Morley, Kitty Morley. She did a opera for babies, and there's another artist, Dalia Asin Thalander, who worked with Stockholm Opera House and made an opera for babies. But and I think so the two references, like stepping in with big institutions, not on the fringes, like really in that mainstream setting. And from observing one of them, it was such a subtle but important shift of focusing on the voice as a source of resonance and vibration, and how could people have contact with that and have it as a full body experience. And it was tried in different ways, like in some more intimate settings, and then in some grander ways. And actually, there are those references, but if you don't know, probably no one else does either. And then maybe you're the best placed person to go out into the patch of grass, out of the heat. Yeah, and what an amazing experiment, because your voice is the most sensory thing ever. And there's a quote of music says what words wish they could. So in terms of an accessible language, it's like opera's already got it all going on. It just seems like it has to let go of some other stuff in the way, maybe.
Yeah, I think that's just the point, is that we live on a very fourth wall that we're constantly trying to break. I constantly try to break it, and I've done quite a few sort of site-specific pieces of work which have had that wonderful sensation, but they haven't been immersive. They've been we're singing in a pub round a table with people, but it's just how we start to feed this really sensory based work as part of everything that we do, and it's been really interesting today. I'm full of ideas, so thank you.
Can I add one tiny thing? Is that okay? I think you've already made the first step to doing it, because you're asking the question and you're here, which is so exciting. But also another thing is working in partnership is so underrated, I think, actually. And maybe it is approaching who's in Leeds, and whether that's Interplay, the Playhouse, other places, to go, what could we do together? To go, what do we both learn from working? Yeah, I just think, because then you can see different ways of working, and so can other organisations. I think partnership working can really tie all of those things together. We've loved being part of the Playhouse week this week, because it just makes everything that we're doing richer, because we've got two organisations of people working on it.
Surely there's some opera singers just getting ready to break out.
I'll rally them.
I know the performance artist Bryony Kimmings did a whole thing with a group of mums, I think, making opera. I think it's on BBC 4. I play, yeah. Okay. You'll have to come up. I'm getting into my role, bossing people around.
Hi, it's not a question, but just to add, Mahogany Opera has made an opera in school, and the young disabled young people were part of the performing the show. And also Scottish Opera has made baby theatre, or baby opera as well. So just wanted to add.
Thank you. Okay. What's up next, Kate? Oh, sorry. Is there somebody? Oh, yeah. Hi. Come on down.
The hot seat, which is actually getting hot.
Is it?
I think it's the light. Yeah.
Oh, hot seat. I just thought it's kind of probably more of a comment, but slightly a question.
What's your name, please?
My name's Beth. I'm a theatre director. I work a lot with Kirsty. I've been to a lot of conferences recently about crisis in the arts in lots of different capacities, in lots of mainstream spaces, and they feel very scary and very unhopeful. So I really wanted to thank you, again, going on the lit a fire in my belly, for making this feel super hopeful. And I think it feels hopeful because of going back to what Kirsty just said about partnerships and about generosity. It feels like the knowledge sharing is so rich, and in other spaces it feels so privileged, and it feels like we don't have resource, so we're not going to share it with you. Whereas actually we know, working in
applied, non-traditional, non-mainstream theatre, that often that's where the most generosity happens. So I wanted to maybe ask or proffer the opportunity of how can we share this spirit of generosity outwards to those people who feel like they can't have it at the moment, which is lots of people in the very big buildings with lots of money.
It's a very good and very hard question. I think it's just people in this industry, I think, or this bit of our industry, that are making sensory work that feels very driven by an audience, whether that is for babies or people with dementia or people with learning disabilities. I think, well, speaking from my experience, I feel generous because I want our sector to thrive. I want the work to be exciting, and it's about the audiences achieving what they want to achieve. And I think maybe that's how we can share that with other people. It's about refocusing people to thinking about their audience, whether that it could be a completely different audience that people are trying to reach, but that generosity of spirit will come if you prioritise the people you're doing it for, I think. Does that answer the question? Does anyone else have anything?
It's really just repeating something that Amber said earlier on, but it really, it gave me fire in my belly of just that thing of going, yeah, there's different offers of this work, and imagine there's this space with the 3 spaces that three things were programmed, and that I don't think I'd thought of that, and I'm like, but that's the scale that we're looking for, and I sort of feel like I want to meet these big people in these big offices and be like, right, Amber's asking, because I just feel I was like, that is such a powerful statement to place and go, why not? And make them dig into that and keep asking them that question.
I think I also I just think the minute you buy into scarcity, you're just gone. And I think the skill of lots of practitioners working, Oily Cart is founded on the principle of audiences that are thought of as impossible to make shows for. If nothing else, knowing how to work within impossible seeming parameters is an art form and a skill. So it's just, and I always love the founders of Oily Cart. Every time I'd say, it's really hard with the funding, they'd say, we did it in Thatcher, shh, pipe down. It's just, I just think, have some context. This has never been easy. No one's ever been asking people to make low capacity, intimate, one-to-one interactive theatre. No one's going to ask you to do that. So I just think, don't waste energy on that stuff and do what you do with energy, and it'll attract. It'll attract. Oh, I had a point and I lost it because I went off.
You've made loads.
Go for it. I was just going to say, I think we love this art, and remembering that it's fun and joyful and yeah, just like what Ellie said, you don't make work for an audience of 6 without a little bit of fight, a little bit of being a bit wild about it, because it's not easy. It wasn't easy for us when it was going well for the venues. It was still really hard for us. So you just keep keep going because you love it. And I wish everybody loved what they did as much as me.
Sorry, I know the thing I was going to say, and it was just that. When you get stuck in a situation where, like in these big institutions, there's always it's binary. There's this or there's that. So, and that's it. That's the way it is. There's always a third option, and that's the key with most access stuff as well, right? Don't waste time on those 2 things. Then, what's the third possibility that you haven't thought of yet? And I think taking that problem-solving mindset into these big institutions it is something that we can offer, because it's that type of creative problem solving. There you are, Rishi.
Well, just one thought about this generosity thing, and maybe this is also part of the positive message, is, so, I put this Theatre for Young Audiences module into a mainstream actor programme, and there was a bit of pushback and continued to be a bit of pushback. But 9 times out of 10, 95, maybe 99.9% of the time, the students who were reluctant to do the work left the project completely won over by that way of working, by meeting young people. Not everybody went this far, but we had one student who said, not only did I not want to work with children, I didn't want to have children, and as a result of this project, I now want to have children. So, but I suppose my point is, I think it's difficult, isn't it? Because there is skill and specialism in this work, and you don't want to just thrust people in, but I'm working with schools who are so generous and just say, yeah, you've got 30 students who are not DBS checked and you want them to come into we'll make that happen, And it is just that thing. It's like it's putting artists in front of diverse audiences and letting them just get on with it and meet other human beings. It's really simple and beautiful and not in many ways not more complicated than that. He says, underselling all the things that we know underpin this work. You do need to have people in the room who know what they're doing, but it does feel that it could be just as simple as that. And one last thought, which is, I hate this word outreach. We need to get rid of it. But the point is, there's our outreach department, which suddenly means the artists who are in the mainstream shows are not engaging in the outreach work, and I never understood that. Why aren't the cast going into the schools instead of a team of other people going into the schools? I did that when I was acting, and it's how I learnt what I'm doing now, and I think that might help too.
Okay, we've got a couple more people up there. Would you like to come down to the mic if you can, if you'd like to?
I don't know what I'm going to say now. Oh. Yeah, train of thought's gone now. Train of thought's gone. It does that sometimes. It's gone somewhere. We've got people. Just jump in. Yeah, I'll try.
Do you want to sit there? If you just give it a little introduction, just for a sec, please.
Hi, my name's Louise. I actually come from the art form of dance, so I'm wearing a blue play suit and a leopard jumper. So it's interesting for me to sit within a sensory theatre symposium and hear art. So I wonder if my kind of framing is, I'm hearing a lot around a non-verbal communication, and I'm thinking the body, dance. I've heard a lot around intensive interaction. For me, that's dance improvisation. And I wonder if the framing of sensory theatre means that there's a disallowance of collaboration between art forms, arguably music, which kind of invites interaction and dance. So I guess it was a provocation of, in framing it as sensory theatre, is that at the exclusion of collaboration across art forms?
At Tim Webb's book launch, he said he started with it and it was multi-sensory theatre, and then it went to sensory theatre. So, I see no reason for it to then just evolve into sensory arts. It can be whatever we as a sector and artists want it to be. I think it's a fantastic point.
Collaboration is really important. Yeah, collaboration. Oops, that's my water bottle. Collaboration's really important for me, is working together and getting inspiration from each other, bounce off each other, have ideas, and all the ideas which I had were my own ideas. I got ideas off other people, but they said it's up to you. I'm like, I collaborated. Oh, what did I collaborate?
What were the art forms that you kind of mushed together?
Paint, dance, music, touch.
And they're all as important as each other.
Yeah, they all work together as a team because it's sensory. And I thought about the taste, but it might not work because we had a few experiences where children tried to eat the paint sticks, and next time we might add something. We might add edible stuff in. We might do, depending on the funding.
Yeah, I think that blend of arts forms happens a lot in sensory theatre. I think from what I've seen, there's so much dance. I mean, the piece that we have on My Life with the Wave is a dance piece, really, and it's got beautiful music and projection, but we still class that as theatre. We still see that as theatre, but you're so right that it feels more blended than any other form of theatre that I've known. So, yes, it's a really good question. It's food for thought of question, that, yeah.
It's just because I don't know. I mean, a few of us are kind of from a dance background that I know here, and we probably wouldn't have thought that we could sit here in a sensory theatre space, and actually in just hearing the conversations, we'd be like, are we sensory theatre artists? Like, so it's made us really question where we sit, because we wouldn't necessarily class what we do as kind of theatre. So yeah, I guess it is a provocation that sat with me, and I kind of just wondered what your thoughts were.
I think that we could do a whole nother symposium.
Oh my God.
I think we could do a whole nother symposium on collaboration in theatre. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? I think that might be. Are there any more from the? Oh, you right at the back. You can come back. You can come down.
We could repeat the question, maybe.
You shout, we'll repeat.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Where you were blindfolded within the context of a sensory theatre symposium. I'm just interested to hear what you thought the value of, in that context, deliberately removing sensors was, and if there are any other examples that did that sort of thing, because I think that's really compelling.
Great. Can we hear a bit more about Hug?
Jeremy, just repeat, or shall I repeat that question? Sorry. Yes, so there was talking about the show Hug that was mentioned earlier, and about whether or not, thank you, about whether or not removing sensors has happened in other places and what that could be like.
It's such a, I think about it quite a lot, because for lots of neurotypical people, when you experience something in a sensory way fully in your body, it can make you feel quite vulnerable and quite self-conscious. So often when I'm doing training, the quickest way to help people let go of that self-consciousness is removing sensors. And because sight is so dominating, the minute you do that, you find people, their bodies soften and they do open up. And there's definitely been some interesting shows. I can't remember the name. It was an Australian artist did a show at the Barbican that was her experience of growing up in a deaf family, and I know she played with removing sensors. She was associated with polyglot theatre. I can find her name. And there's an amazing show I heard, that was like a labyrinth where the audience were blindfolded. And I noticed recently, yeah, it was that word. They're a Belgium company from Belgium.
Thank you.
Oh, I don't know if it was them actually, but they work with that a lot. And I think it's I always think, I'd really fancy a blindfold show, and I noticed there's a company in South Africa doing that for people that are blind or blindfolded. And I think it's a really interesting area, and I think there's lots to unpick. It's a very ethically complex area as well, because because of deaf being an identity and a culture, so then people removing senses deliberately and what that means. I just think it's like a fascinating area, but an extremely ethically complex one to really, really take time with and unpick. Sense Project in Scotland also did a great project where they worked with blind performers who guided people into a dark show, a completely pitch black dark show, and I always was really jealous of that show. I always thought it sounded really great.
Okay. Great. Well,
shall we call it there?
Yeah,
what do you think?
I'd just like to say thank you, everybody. That was brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. We have a slight shift in our programme that at this point in time, we were going to welcome young people from the Bok Festival and Beautiful Octopus Club and Buzz programmes at the Playhouse. But as of their request on Monday and Tuesday, which we're very excited by, they've actually curated their artwork around the building, and there's videos playing of what they do, and they wanted you to experience it instead of be here and talk about it with you. So we'd love to invite you now for the last 15 minutes of the symposium to head up back to level 2 where the food and refreshments were, and just take a look at that work and chat to us and engage with us, and we'll be there talking about the young people's work and about the festival this week. So yes, I'll do some housekeeping bits to finish us off, and then we'll go up there together. There is some networking drinks and chatting happening between 4 and 6, and that's at the Wardrobe Bar just across the road. So if you don't know Leeds or you don't know the Playhouse, if you go out through the front room cafe and turn left, keep going, and it's just a minute away, you'll see a bar called the Wardrobe, and we'll be in there, and you can come and chat to us and ask any questions that you didn't quite get to ask. But please do make sure you look at all of the work around the Playhouse before you do that. Some thank yous for today. Thank you so much to our hosts and supporters, Leeds Playhouse. Thank you so much. It's been a joy to share this week with them, and their expertise, I'm sure you'll see from the day, has been just brilliant. So thank you so much for having us. Thank you so much to the Interplay team that are here today that have supported the symposium, and thank you to our Zoom moderator, Madassa, and Laura, who's been working very hard to keep everything running today. Yes, thank you. And a huge thank you to all of our panellists and also all of the teams at the organisations that they work in to make sure that they could be here and give us their time and expertise today. And I'm going to name check all of you, as I should. So thank you to Frozen Light, Oily Cart, Mind the Gap, Broomfield SILC, John Jameson School, Tenterhooks and Rose Bruford, and anyone else that might not be on my list. Thank you so much for being brilliant. And we would love as well to let you know that there are a few tickets left available for the 6 o'clock show tonight. So if you've been interested and inspired by today and you want to see that show, you can still book for the 6 o'clock. But you've still got time to come and chat to us before you go to that. That would be great. So yeah, thank you so much. And please do stick about and keep chatting about the thriving sensory scene, because I'm sure you'll agree it's been a day of great discussion. So thank you all, everybody. And come and explore the Playhouse with us, please. Thank you so much as well to our brilliant BSL interpreters for interpreting the day so beautifully. Thank you. Excellent. And yeah, we'll come out and join you in the Playhouse. Thank you.